Your expensive vacuum sealer is actually accelerating spoilage on certain foods. And 18th century pirates accidentally discovered why. They had no electricity, no fancy equipment, just a $5 ingredient you've probably thrown away. But here's what nobody mentions. This method does something to food at the molecular level that modern technology physically cannot replicate. Pirates weren't just thieves with parrots on their shoulders. They were survival experts who figured out something we've completely forgotten. Here's a fact that'll make you rethink everything. Ships spent 3 to 6 months at sea with zero refrigeration. None. Not a single ice cube. And these crews of 200 men couldn't exactly pull into a drive-thru when the food ran low. One spoiled barrel, that meant mutiny, or starvation, or both. So they got creative. Really creative. See, the average naval sailor died young. Scurvy, food poisoning, contaminated water. But pirates, they actually outlived their Navy counterparts by years. Not because they were tougher, because they learned better tricks from every culture they robbed. Spanish preservation secrets, African smoking techniques, Caribbean methods passed down for thousands of years, Asian fermentation knowledge. Pirates grabbed it all like a buffet of survival wisdom. And here's what gets me. Your fancy $500 vacuum sealer, it delays spoilage. That's it. Just buys you a couple extra weeks in the fridge before things go bad. Pirate methods didn't delay anything. They transformed food into shelf-stable products that lasted decades. We're talking 20, 30, sometimes over 100 years. The cost back then? A single preserved pork barrel ran about 2 shillings. Today's equivalent, using the exact same techniques, under $5 in salt and basic supplies. I've personally tried these methods, and honestly, my grandfather would have laughed at my expensive kitchen gadgets. He knew this stuff instinctively, but knowing pirates preserved food is one thing. Understanding exactly how they turned raw pork into something that survived tropical heat for 2 years without a single drop of refrigeration, that's where things get interesting. Salt pork wasn't just food. It was basically the protein bar of the 1700s, except it actually worked. Here's how pirates made it. They took raw pork, packed it into barrels with 8 to 10 pounds of coarse salt for every 100 pounds of meat. That's it. No fancy equipment. No electricity, just salt doing what salt does best. And what does salt do? It wages biological warfare. See, the salt draws out every drop of moisture through osmosis. Bacteria need water to survive. No water, no bacteria. Simple as that. Your vacuum sealer just removes air and hopes for the best. Salt literally creates an environment where microbes cannot physically exist. The results? Properly salted pork lasted 2 years or more without refrigeration. Meanwhile, that vacuum-sealed chicken breast in your fridge goes bad in 2 to 3 weeks, and that's with your refrigerator running 24/7. Now, eating salt pork straight would basically pickle your tongue, so pirates soaked it in fresh water for a full 24 hours before cooking. Then they fried it in its own rendered fat. Actually pretty tasty from what I've tried recreating at home. But here's the economics that blow my mind. 1 barrel of salt pork fed 10 men for an entire month. The cost? About 2 days of a sailor's wages. Try feeding 10 people for 30 days on 2 days of your paycheck today. Good luck. And this isn't ancient history buried in museums. Walk into any grocery store and look at that $80 Smithfield country ham. Same exact process, same science, pirate technology still working perfectly 300 years later. But salt pork was heavy. Ships needed something lighter, something almost indestructible. What they created next has literally outlived everyone who ever made it. Hardtack wasn't bread. It was a weapon disguised as food. Here's the recipe. Flour, water, maybe a pinch of salt. Mix it into dough, roll it 1/2 inch thick, poke holes with a fork, then bake it. Not once, 4 times, until every single molecule of moisture evaporates into thin air. What you're left with? An edible brick that could crack your teeth if you weren't careful. But here's what blows my mind. Archaeologists have found hardtack from the Civil War that's still technically safe to eat. We're talking over 150 years old. My store-bought bread grows mold in a week. This stuff outlived the men who baked it. The secret was brutally simple. Bacteria and mold need moisture to survive. Remove all the water and nothing can grow. Period. No fancy chemicals, no preservatives you can't pronounce, just aggressive dehydration. Now, eating it was another story entirely. Pirates had to soak hardtack in coffee, rum, or stew for up to 15 minutes before human teeth could break it down. Some guys dunked it until it turned into mush. Others liked the challenge of gnawing on what felt like a ceramic tile. And the weevils. Oh, the weevils. After a few months at sea, those biscuits became apartment complexes for tiny bugs. Pirates called it wormy biscuit and developed a smart habit. They ate in complete darkness so they wouldn't see what they were chewing. What you don't know won't hurt you, right? Want to know the cost? About 30 cents per pound to make it home today. Your fancy bread machine can't touch that shelf life. Not even close. But lasting long and tasting decent are two different problems. And Pirates had creative solutions for that too. Here's where Pirates got really clever. And honestly, a little bit crazy. They built smokehouses on wooden ships. Let that sink in for a second. Fire. On a boat. Surrounded by gunpowder barrels and rum. These guys had nerves of steel. The setup was simple. A small brick or clay firebox on deck, carefully positioned away from anything that would send everyone to a watery grave. They called these fireboxes boucan. Sound familiar? It should. That's literally where the word buccaneer comes from. Every time you say buccaneer, you're basically saying guy who smokes meat. I love that. Now, the smoking process itself is pure chemistry magic. When wood burns slowly, it releases compounds like formaldehyde and acetic acid. These chemicals don't just flavor the meat. They penetrate the surface and create an antimicrobial barrier that bacteria simply cannot survive. But here's what separates pirate smoking from your backyard barbecue. Cold smoking. We're talking 68 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit, maintained for 1 to 3 weeks straight. Low and slow doesn't even begin to describe it. This preserved meat without actually cooking it, keeping nutrients intact while creating that signature smoky protection layer. The results? Smoked fish and meat lasted 3 to 6 months in Caribbean humidity. No plastic, no refrigeration, no electricity. Your fancy vacuum sealer bags would melt in that tropical heat before your jerky went bad. Caribbean pirates actually learned this technique from the Taino people, who had perfected smoking over 2,000 years. Pirates weren't just stealing gold. They were stealing culinary knowledge from every culture they encountered. The smartest crews combined methods. Salt first, then smoke. Double preservation barrier. Speaking of combinations, there's another technique that saved more lives than any medicine on these ships. Now here's something that might surprise you. Pirates actually ate their vegetables, and not because some ship's doctor nagged them about nutrition. They figured out something brutal through trial and error. Without vegetables, your gums start bleeding. Then your teeth fall out. Then you die. Scurvy killed more sailors than cannonballs and storms combined. Way more. So they got creative with cabbage, onions, and cucumbers, packed them tight in barrels filled with salt brine and vinegar. The magic number? They needed the liquid under pH 4.6. Below that threshold, the nastiest bacteria on Earth, Clostridium botulinum, simply cannot survive. That's the same stuff that makes improperly canned food kill you. A barrel of sauerkraut cost almost nothing to make, just cabbage, salt, and patience. Yet it saved entire crews from dying with their mouths full of blood. My grandmother used to make sauerkraut in her basement every fall. Same exact method, different century. But wait, it gets better. The fermentation process didn't just preserve the vegetables, it actually increased their B vitamin content. So pickled vegetables ended up more nutritious than fresh ones. Your fancy organic produce from Whole Foods can't claim that. Captain James Cook proved this worked on the ultimate test run. 3 years at sea. 0 men lost to scurvy. His secret weapon? He forced every sailor to eat sauerkraut daily, whether they liked it or not. Some things never change. Nobody wants to eat their vegetables until death becomes the alternative. The whole operation cost pennies, saved lives worth fortunes. Vegetables handled, but pirates still faced another problem. They needed something for morale, something that could preserve food and lift spirits on dark ocean nights. And they found the perfect solution in rum. Now here's where pirates got really clever. Rum wasn't just for getting drunk, it was a preservation tool hiding in plain sight. High-proof rum, we're talking 60% alcohol or stronger, could be poured directly over fresh fruit and meat. The alcohol created an antibacterial barrier that killed basically everything trying to spoil your food. Pirates preserved tropical fruits, butter, even chunks of meat by submerging them completely in rum-filled casks. And here's the sneaky part. The sugar content in rum created an additional preservation effect through osmosis. Same principle as salt, different ingredient. You want proof this actually worked? When Admiral Nelson died at the Battle of Trafalgar, they preserved his entire body in brandy for the trip home to England. If alcohol can keep a dead admiral fresh for weeks, it can definitely handle your mangoes. I actually tried this with some peaches last summer. Submerged them in rum, forgot about them for 3 months, pulled them out, and they were perfect. Better than perfect, honestly. They tasted like dessert. But the real genius was efficiency. A single barrel of rum served triple duty on pirate ships. Drinking rations for the crew, wound disinfection when someone got stabbed or shot, and food preservation for everything else. That's maximum value from one product. Rum-preserved fruit provided crucial calories and vitamins during those endless Pacific crossings where no fresh food existed for months. The crew got their sugar, their nutrients, and let's be honest, a little buzz from the fruit too. Modern fruit preserves use sugar and heat. Pirates used sugar and alcohol. Both work. One's just way more fun. Speaking of protecting food from spoilage, there's another method that created an airtight seal centuries before plastic existed. Now here's something your ancestors figured out that modern food companies charge you premium prices for. Cheese. Pirates loved it. Problem was, cheese and tropical heat mix about as well as cats in bathtubs. So what did they do? They dipped entire cheese wheels in hot beeswax or melted tallow. That's it. A coating about 1/8 of an inch thick created a perfect airtight seal. No oxygen getting in, no moisture escaping out, and the results? Absolutely wild. Waxed cheese survived 6 to 12 months in ship holds that regularly hit 90 degrees. Not just survived, it actually got better. The aging process continued under that wax coating, developing sharper, more complex flavors that sailors would trade their rum rations for. Here's what kills me about modern vacuum sealers. You spend $500 on equipment, then keep buying replacement bags forever. Pirates spent pennies on beeswax they could scrape off and reuse indefinitely. The Dutch figured this out commercially. Their Edam cheese became the single most traded food product on Earth, specifically because that red wax coating survived months of ocean transport. Every port from Jakarta to Jamaica wanted it. But the real kicker, you can do this today, right now. A block of cheese wax costs about $3 per pound of cheese you want to coat. Dip it, let it harden, store it in your basement, no electricity required. 1 year later, you've got perfectly aged cheese that tastes better than when you started. My grandmother kept wax cheese in her root cellar through entire summers. No refrigerator needed. She thought we were insane for trusting the power company with our food supply. She wasn't wrong, but wax isn't the only way pirates created oxygen barriers. They discovered something even simpler. Mediterranean pirates figured this one out pretty quick after raiding a few Italian merchant ships. Submerging food in olive oil cuts off all oxygen contact. No oxygen means no oxidation. No oxidation means bacteria can't do their thing. Simple chemistry, really. Here's what blew my mind when I first learned this. Oil-packed anchovies and tuna lasted over a year without any refrigeration. Not in a cool basement, on ships sailing through tropical waters where the hold temperatures hit 90 degrees regularly, and nothing spoiled. The oil creates this perfect seal around whatever you're preserving. Fish, meat, vegetables, doesn't matter. Once it's fully submerged, the clock basically stops ticking on decay. But wait, there's more. The oil itself became infused with all those flavors over time. Pirates used that flavored oil for cooking their other meals. Zero waste on a ship where every supply mattered. This technique wasn't new, though. The French had been doing something called confit for centuries. Slow cook meat in fat, then store it under that same fat. Exact same oxygen barrier principle, different fat source. Oil-packed foods kept something that dried and salted foods couldn't. Moisture, texture, actual enjoyment while eating. After months of rock-hard hardtack and salt pork that could double as shoe leather, oil-preserved fish must have tasted like a restaurant meal. Makes sense why pirates targeted those Mediterranean supply ships so aggressively, right? And here's the kicker that'll make you laugh. That can of tuna you grabbed at Walmart for $1.29? That's this exact 300-year-old pirate technology. Same method, same principle, fancier packaging. Speaking of things pirates kept around for later, they had one preservation method that required zero technology at all. Here's where pirates got really clever. Why preserve dead animals when you can keep them alive? Every pirate ship was basically a floating barnyard. Chickens clucking in wooden cages, goats tied to the mast, pigs rooting around below deck. These animals weren't pets. They were self-preserving meat that stayed fresh until someone got hungry. But the real prize? Giant Galapagos tortoises. These creatures were biological miracles for sailors. They survived 6 months or longer without food or water. Just stack them in the hold like scaly filing cabinets, and they'd sit there, alive and waiting. When you needed fresh meat, you had it. No salt required, no smoking, no special preparation. One ship's log from 1743 recorded 180 live turtles in the cargo hold. Each one weighed around 200 pounds of pure, fresh meat. That's 36,000 pounds of protein that preserved itself. My grandfather kept chickens for the same reason pirates did. Dual purpose, he called it. Eggs every morning for months, then chicken dinner when the laying stopped. Nothing wasted. And here's the weird part. This method cost absolutely nothing for preservation. The animals did all the work themselves. Sure, you had to feed them, but scraps worked fine. Chickens ate weevils from the hardtack. Goats ate anything. Turtles ate nothing at all. The practice worked so well that pirates nearly drove Galapagos tortoises to extinction. Thousands of ships over 2 centuries, each grabbing as many as they could carry. Makes you think differently about that expensive vacuum sealer, doesn't it? Pirates had fresh meat whenever they wanted it. Zero electricity required, zero bags to buy. But what happens when you combine all these methods together? That's when pirate preservation truly crushes modern technology. Here's the truth nobody in the food preservation industry wants you to hear. Vacuum-sealed meat still needs your refrigerator running 24/7. The moment power dies, your expensive preservation method becomes a ticking bacteria bomb. Meanwhile, that barrel of salt pork from 1792 is still technically edible. No electricity required. Ever. I learned this the hard way during a 5-day blackout. Lost $300 worth of vacuum-sealed steaks. My neighbor, his salt-cured ham hung in the basement like nothing happened. And let's talk money. A decent vacuum sealer runs $200. Bags cost another $50 yearly. Replacement parts, electricity. Within 5 years, you've spent $500 or more just to delay spoilage by a few weeks. Salt costs $4 for a 25-pound bag. That same bag preserves over 200 pounds of meat for years. Not weeks, years. But here's what really gets me. Modern preservation fights time. Pirate preservation worked with it. Vacuum-sealed chicken tastes exactly the same on day 1 as day 14. Boring. Predictable. Salt-cured ham, smoked fish, these actually improve with age. The flavors deepen. They develop character. Your great-grandmother knew this. She didn't need YouTube tutorials or expensive gadgets. A barrel, some salt, maybe smoke from the hickory tree. Done. The weirdest part? Every single method we've covered works right now with grocery store ingredients. Hurricane coming, power grid failing, economic uncertainty making you nervous. You don't need Amazon Prime delivery of specialized equipment. You need knowledge that's 300 years old and $5 worth of supplies. Pirates figured this out while being shot at and dodging storms. Surely we can manage it from our kitchens.